Yesterday I was talking with a couple of mods in the Discord server, and we were talking about DLC and how it's been lacking within Cold War and Modern Warfare. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about the differences between paid DLC and free DLC within mainly Call of Duty, and then this could apply to some other games as well. There are pros and cons to both paid and free DLC, and I want to explore in depth and kind of share my perspective and my thoughts and opinions on why paid DLC is better than free DLC. And of course, your opinion could be completely opposite, where you think free DLC is better than paid DLC. But I'll share my argument, and if you guys agree or disagree, feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. To give context to those who are brand new to the Call of Duty franchise, either being introduced to Warzone, Modern Warfare, or Cold War, you are going to be used to free DLC and getting free DLC maps, but you used to have to pay for the extra DLC maps. For example, there used to be 4 DLC drops a season, and a Call of Duty season was 1 year from the launch of the game until the launch of the next game, which is in yearly cycles. So every quarter of the year, you are getting 1 DLC pack. This DLC pack usually includes 4 multiplayer maps, a couple Spec Ops things, whether that's a full-fleshed zombies map or a couple Spec Ops missions, and on the rare occasion, DLC weapons. Usually, in the older Call of Duties, you had to get DLC weapons from supply drops, but we're not really going to focus on that because that's a whole different discussion itself. But that's really how DLC used to work. You have your 4 DLC drops with 4 multiplayer maps, so you're getting 16 multiplayer maps through the DLC season if you have the season's pass, which is cheaper, by the way, than just buying the DLCs by themselves. And you also get 4 full-fledged zombies maps if it's a Treyarch Call of Duty, or if it was a Call of Duty like Infinite Warfare or World War II. And then if you were a Modern Warfare game, you got a bunch of Spec Ops stuff on the side rather than just the DLC maps. So you got a lot for your money in these DLC bundles. And not to mention, the games also launched with 14 to 12 maps each, so you had 20 plus multiplayer maps by the end of the Call of Duty season. So you had lots of variety throughout the entire life cycle of that Call of Duty game. And then if you look at the DLC model now, we have 6 seasons per Call of Duty rather than it split up into quarters. And what do we get in a season? Well, we usually get 2 multiplayer maps in 6v6, which is the most important because I would assume that's where the majority of the multiplayer player base is. And for example, we got 3 maps within Season 3 for Cold War. However, one of them is a remake. We got Yamatow, Diesel, and then Standoff being brought back, which is pretty decent for some DLC maps. However, we're only getting 2 original maps. And you could say there's the Duga multi-team game mode coming in, but that's a specific game mode that won't see a lot of people playing it. So realistically, we're getting 2 new DLC maps for this season. And you might be thinking, hey, 2 for a season, that's not bad. But if you look at the seasons, that's a month and a half, 2 months of time, and you only get 2 maps. And if you do the math, 2 times 6, you're only getting 12 maps for free rather than paying and getting 16. And that's only 4 maps less, but with how the maps are spaced out within these Cold War seasons and Modern Warfare seasons, you're not getting a lot of maps. And also, while Season 3 is packed full of content, most seasons aren't guaranteed to get brand new maps. If we look at Cold War Season 2, Apocalypse was the 1 new map we got. Of course, there was some Fireteam Dirty Bomb maps that got put into the game, but the only new 6v6 map was Apocalypse, which then means you're only getting 1 new map in that entire season. And sure, absolutely you could say, oh, but they're remastering these maps and bringing them into DLC as well. So we have maps like Standoff and Raid and a bunch of these OG maps that we see coming in. But the thing with the OG maps is they seem to rely on those mainly rather than making new maps. Season 3, a little bit different. We have 2 brand new maps and then Standoff being brought back. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. But if we look at Season 2, it's a 1-to-1 ratio with Raid and Apocalypse. So still, once again, only getting 1 original map. And how the quarterly DLC drops used to work is you used to get 4 original maps, and on the off chance that there was a remastered map, which only happened in Treyarch Call of Duties, you would have 3 brand new original maps and 1 remake / remaster of a map. And then Infinity Ward usually made their own from scratch, and it was 4 brand new maps that no one has ever seen before. And this is going to be all in the golden era of Call of Duty, when DLCs were actually fun and interesting. I would say ever since after Black Ops 3, the 4-quarter DLC launch or whatever you want to call it weren't that good. And that's just because we had games like Infinite Warfare, World War II, and I don't remember what came after, Black Ops 4. So they actually relied on a lot of those DLC maps rather than making their own. However, some of those DLC maps were really good as well, and top of the base maps. I just didn't play those games that much, so I didn't notice it as much as I noticed the DLC maps in Modern Warfare 3 per se. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, as a player who has always gotten the 4 DLC packs, I miss having a large content drop that's not spread out throughout a couple seasons. Like if you look at Warzone, the Cold War Warzone integration really took 3 seasons to go full swing for the nuke event to happen rather than just having it in 1. So it took half of the Cold War seasons for anything to happen into Warzone, and Warzone's a special case, but it is how DLC works now. And if I had the option, I would rather pay for DLC than stick with this free DLC model. And that is because you get what you pay for. Not only do we get multiplayer maps, but we also get zombies maps. If you look at Cold War, by now we should have 2 DLC maps with a 3rd DLC map a couple weeks away. However, we've only got 1 DLC map, which is Firebase Z, and you could say, oh, well, Outbreak is a brand new game mode. Well, I mean, it's technically a new game mode, but they didn't really have to do anything because they just took the Fireteam Dirty Bomb maps, which they already made, and then put Perk Machine there, Perk Machine here, Pack Punch Machine will go over here, and we'll add a couple objectives over here, and then we'll have zombies spawn. And sure, you could say, well, that's DLC too. I mean, you could say that, but I disagree because I see Zombies DLC as full-fledged zombies maps. So in the sense of getting what you pay for, I would much rather pay for zombies maps and have zombies maps actually released not too far apart from each other, maybe like a month or 2 in between each zombies map. I would much rather pay for that than have to wait for free zombies maps. And there's tons of people in the zombies community that are huge zombies YouTubers that are going to other games because zombies doesn't have much to offer in Cold War. Sure, Outbreak is the most replayable mode there is, but the Outbreak relies on multiplayer Fireteam Dirty Bomb maps. And then you go to the round-based zombie maps, and we have 2. We have D Machina and Firebase Z. So that's a video that I want to make this week as well, is I want to talk a little bit more about the DLC and how they're killing zombies that way. But I miss it, and I miss having these huge DLC content drops. And you could say, oh, well, I don't want to pay for every DLC. Back in Modern Warfare 3, we received free DLC as well within the face-off playlist. So in the seasons past, when we get new like 2v2 gunfight maps, when we had paid DLC, we got maps like that for free anyway, and we could even pay for new maps in the future. And now let's talk about the pros and cons on both sides. This free DLC style is a step down for those people who have constantly bought the season's passes and have always had the 4 DLC multiplayer maps for a drop, and then they also get the main fleshed out zombies map every single DLC drop as well. So for those who constantly bought the season's pass, which I would assume is just over half of the player base, it is a step down from that DLC model. And for those who never paid for DLC in the past, this is a fantastic model for them because now they don't feel left out and they get to play all the zombies maps for free whenever they launch, and they can play all the multiplayer maps for free and do all that fun stuff. So it's a huge pro for those who couldn't afford or just never bought DLC in the past. And you could ask the question, well, it splits the player base if you have paid DLC, because only the people that buy that DLC are going to be able to play that DLC map. And then once the player base starts to drop, then you can't really play a lot of those DLC maps because there's not enough players to fill lobbies in the DLC modes. Well, we could do exactly what Modern Warfare 3 did. Modern Warfare 3 had a toggle where you could play with the DLC maps in rotation, or you could play with just the base maps in rotation. And keep in mind, this is when we had like 12, 13, 14, basically a dozen plus multiplayer maps on launch. So if you were going without DLC, you still had tons of maps to play. So you would toggle the DLC on and off, and we could do something like that now. It would be pretty hard since I think we will never see paid DLC ever again in Call of Duty, at least for a while, until this free DLC format kind of gets a little tiring, or they're just not making as much money. So going back on topic is you could toggle to have your DLC activated to play with it. So if you can't find a lobby with the DLC activated, you turn it off and then go play in the base maps. And yes, that does suck because you paid for these maps and now you can't play them in multiplayer. But there usually is people in those playlists, even on the older Call of Duties, and as long as Cold War and Modern Warfare stay as popular as they already are, I don't think that would be an issue whatsoever. The only issue would arise 5 years down in the future when the player base of the game is only in the couple of thousands at a single time in the game. And on the bright side, we would have more zombies maps too. So you would pay for the multiplayer DLC and play the zombies maps. At least that's how I used to buy DLC, is I would buy the DLC pack for the zombies map and then just coincidentally play on the multiplayer maps as well. My favorite example of this was, I think it was the Apocalypse DLC in Black Ops 2 with Origins. I bought that DLC pack strictly for the Origins zombie map, but I also played a lot of the multiplayer maps just in the multiplayer rotation as well when I was just wanting to play multiplayer. And so I focused on the zombies, and that's what I bought the game for. And that's what a lot of people bought the DLC for as well, as they bought it strictly for the zombies map. And then you would also get the multiplayer maps on top of that. And so you could also ask the question, what about all the cool DLC vehicles and DLC weapons in the game? Well, you can actually keep the Battle Pass system as well. So you keep the Battle Pass system and you launch these DLC weapons the same way that we have seen them within Modern Warfare and Cold War. So all the weapons and character skins and blueprints and all that stuff, you keep that in the Battle Pass, and you can buy the Battle Pass with COD points, and you keep that system. Just in my non-professional opinion, if you were to have 2 DLC formats within a single game, keep all the maps, so the multiplayer maps and the zombies maps, in a season's pass like we've seen in previous years, and then you let all the blueprints and the battle pass work the same way they always have. And you could also say, well, what about the blueprints in the COD point shop? You don't touch those because you don't need to. It doesn't need to be changed at all because you're paying for those blueprints. And speaking of blueprints, yes, you do buy the battle pass, but you're kind of buying like the super standard variants of weapons and all that type of stuff. But once again, you get what you pay for with the variant shop if you want to buy like an anime pack bundle, because you are buying specifically what you want for a specific weapon and it looks good. 9 times out of 10, what you buy in the COD point shop is 100 times better than anything you get from the battle pass, just showing that when you pay for DLC, you get better products, because once again, you get what you pay for. If the companies like Activision have a monetary motivation where people buy DLC, they will put more time into that DLC because that is what people are going to buy. And you could also put the argument up, well, if people are going to choose between DLC and stuff in the gun print or blueprint shop, they're probably going to pick the DLC, which is true. So they're going to lose a little bit of revenue from the blueprint shop. But for the huge whales in the community that will buy both the weapon blueprints and the DLC, those people will still do that. And the free-to-play players that just play Warzone, that income from those blueprints in the weapon shop, those won't change whatsoever. And it would be the best of both worlds for mixing the free DLC with the paid DLC. So technically, everything would be paid for DLC map-wise, and then you would have to buy the battle pass, but once you buy one battle pass, as long as you don't spend your COD points, you always get enough plus more COD points back to buy the next battle pass. And we would see tons of free weapons anyway. So the weapons in the battle pass would still be free tiers that once you got to that level, boom, you unlock the weapon. And for the new like mid-season weapons that are put into the game, like the AMP-63 that's coming out in a few days, that's also just with a challenge and unlocked with the challenge. And if you want to buy it in the shop, you can buy it in the shop. If you want to unlock it in game, you can unlock it in game. Anyway, that's my tangent on why I really believe that paid DLC is the way to go in a multiplayer first-person shooter like Call of Duty. It just makes sense. It made sense back then to pay for DLC, and it makes sense now to pay for DLC because if we paid for it now, we would get more content, both zombies and multiplayer wise. Anyway, let me know in the comment section what you guys disagree with or agree with. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, dislike if you didn't. There's no hard feelings. Subscribe for more videos in the future, and if there is one, I'll see ya in the next one. Peace.